All right, guys, the time has come. We're going to put this bad boy into our project Backmarker and get it running, I hope. Anyway, welcome to VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled. All right, so wiring harness is done. It's on. The engine is complete. It's all together. It's time to put it in the car. By the way, on top of getting this in the car and getting it running, we're also going to be upgrading our brakes at this time as well. The brake setup on it was stock, and I want disc front and rear. So those really are the last two things that I need to do in order to be able to get this thing licensed and get it out on the road. So right now, Scott and I are going to put this engine in and connect everything up and see if it'll fire up. Let's get going. Alrighty, Scott. You see what I found inside the car?
Were they used to be a cop?
No, I think they did it for like just to have protection. Maybe he likes to drive in a bad part of town.
We never do that.
It's a B swap in an EF. How long can it take?
Yeah.
About a month.
It's already been in once, so we know it fits.
True. All right, down.
I saw it on Super Tuner TV.
Yeah, it's Super Tuner TV. Remember that episode? We should have the bolts loose on top of this so we can slide the mount back a little bit.
So how does this swap compare to doing a K-swap in an EF?
The K-swap in the EF is a lot more stuff because you got to cut holes for your shift cables, you've got to cut this frame rail bracket off, you got to weld a new one in. This was like the original swap. I mean, it was never as easy as a B series and an EG, but once the mounts came about, it was pretty easy. Yeah. All right, so we're basically going to go up in the air now and connect everything from the bottom. That means axles, stop, header. Let's go ahead and put the upper part of the header on, then we can put the bottom part of the header on while we're under the. Well, okie doke. So this is.
Never mind.
A 5 Gaghagen. Jasma is like SAE or like carb, basically. This is OBD 0. It has an O2 sensor for each bank. We're actually going to just plug these. We're not going to use them. And Hassport was going to have these made years ago by Gaghagen, but they were really expensive, so we only had one made. Cost us like 1,500 bucks. But it has the OBD0 oxygen ports and on the back of the header the OBD1 oxygen port. All right, I'm gonna go get the shift linkage. Shift. This is Hassport EFB shift linkage. It's very similar to JDM shift linkage, it's a little bit different, or shortened 90 to 93 Integra shift linkage, but it's set up properly for the swap as it comes in this car. The engine in this car sits about a ½ inch farther that way and a ½ inch farther back than it would normally in like an SIR. The SIR has a slightly longer front end and things, so it sits in a slightly different area. But we are getting ready to install this in our car, and so we get good shifting every time. This is the stock linkage. We're going to use this shift lever. So the part that goes up into this part, same. Going to use the same shift lever. This also has a rubber bushing that holds it at the rear. You can use the stock one, or Hassport sells the urethane ones, which are a little bit more robust, a little stiffer. Goes like that. We'll need to push these bushings in there as well. This is going to go in the large end here. I can't remember which way it goes. I think it goes that way.
The washer goes.
Okay, yeah. All right.
What makes them a pain is that they're tiny little lock nuts.
Yeah.
So you have to hold it in its little home the whole way. A lot of times those little squares will strip on you when you're trying to take apart an old crusty linkage. You just gotta grind them out. I might be able to hold that.
Probably should have taken the time to clean it, but oh well. Moves freely, all the way down. All righty. With our washers in it. And then that'll go on top of that to kind of retain it. Alrighty. Up we go. Shift linkage first. Might have to fish it through the... Yeah. It went. You can tell because it's got a little shoulder right there.
Yeah.
Was there a roll pin in that box of shifter parts?
Shifter
No?
parts.
I hope we never have to have it warranty.
K-series.
That bitch pin has been sitting in that box for probably 15 years.
Yeah.
So when I'm in there in the messing around in there, notice, see this 5-zigging header, see how this is not clocked the same way? Which is not a huge deal, but it's a deal. We were gonna try just adjusting the cat. But while I was in the shed, I found another 5-zigging header. And actually, I always say 5-zigging, but I used to say go-zigging all the time.
Because you're JDM, you say.
Because the JDM is
go.
5 is go. So, but anyway, this question is this B or is it D? Looks like B. So anyway, let's swap it out.
Nice. You know, that's tucked up in there tighter than the other one.
It does, yeah. Found a better one. Fits better. I mean, the other one, I think we might have had it made so it fit a B18 or a B16.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was 2 pieces like it was. So, but regardless,
Cool.
this one tucks nice and it's clocked correctly. So we're all good. And it's so JDM, yo. A while ago, we got offered a bunch of axles for 94 Integra. Now, those axles will work for the swap, but they're not perfect for the swap. First off, they have this dust seal on that needs to be knocked off.
And the ABS ring.
We can leave that on. I don't think it rubs on anything. We'll check the ABS ring. It may touch the bottom of the knuckle, but if it doesn't, we can leave that on. But these are basically EG swap axles, not EF, but they're within the allowable range. Uh-oh.
Whoa.
So this is the axle, or the intermediate shaft that came in our car, and it has a female joint. Our axle has a female joint. This is actually from a 90 to 93 Integra. That's from a 94 up Integra. So would have worked had we had an intermediate shaft like this. Unfortunately, this intermediate shaft won't work because this one is for an automatic transmission. So this comes on a 94 up Integra with automatic. See the offset? You can see how this mounting surface is much farther away from the center line of the axle. That's because the automatic transmissions are larger. So I was able to find a bunch of these auto male style intermediate shafts, but they're not going to do us any good. I need a female style one. Now, just to kind of give you the full story, this is also an intermediate shaft for B16A. This came on the Civic SIR. I don't know if you can tell, but it's actually a little bit longer. But it has the same mounting points in the same position. So it'll mount on the B16, but this requires a shorter axle. If I wanted to use this one, which I could, I would get an 88 Integra axle, and that would work. If I want to use this one, which is the one from the 9293 Integra, I need to order a 9293 Integra axle. So now I got a little choice. Which one do I want? I guess I'm going to buy a 9293 Integra axle because that'd probably be a lot easier to find. But it has the proper joint on it and should be fine for our situation. Although it's kind of late tonight, so I don't think we're going to get to it tonight. So, and Scott wanted to show you something that you need to do in order to get these axles on here. One of the things you have to do is take this dust seal off.
Which is pretty easy. You just get your screwdriver and pop it off.
Yeah.
It will bind on the
inside of the...
If this was a B series car from the factory, this would work and it would help seal things, but it's not necessary. And once you get the axle in there, it'll be tight.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm going to set that down. You have to remove this little dust shield from the back side of the wheel here. That ring goes in back there. You can just get your screwdriver in there and pop that out also.
If you don't, it binds up.
You'll know once you tighten the nut, the car will not move.
Yeah, can't roll the tire. Anyway, so we are going to order the correct axle. Let's go ahead and put...
This is the shadow way.
Shadow? Campfire. We can do the...
We can do the passenger side axle.
Yeah, we can do the passenger side axle. We're going to do that, and then I think we're going to call it an evening, and I will get the proper axle for the other side.
I've already removed this side.
By the way, the SIR axles are the same length as 86.9 Integra. But because this engine isn't quite mounted in the same place, the 90-93 ones work just fine. There you
Bam.
go.
I've already changed the seal out because the seal that was in our tranny was too big. I don't know if you can see that. I already changed it out up inside there. Up in here.
Not up in here.
Up in here?
Up in here.
Up in here.
Up in here.
You gotta find yourself.
There you go.
All right, so I'm here with Mr. Fastbrakes.
Yeah.
So,
Otherwise known as Brian.
yeah, I think everybody knows who you are. Anyway, so Brian here has been helpful with our brake upgrade on this particular car. So we've actually done most of it. We just need a few things like brake lines now and brake shoes. Apparently I lent out my rear brake lines to the budget DG.
More are coming, so they'll be here
All right.
in a couple days. So yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that. Anyway, so let's go over the brake kit we've got here. On the front here, what do we got?
Okay, so this is the kit that I developed. This is the first thing I ever developed. Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. And what it consists of a VW Corrado rotor, 88 to 91, Integra or Civic EX calipers with an adapter bracket that I designed way back in the day. So that's basically it. And I developed this mainly because at the time, and you remember this, 1995, 96, I had my EF, my SI, and there were no brake kits available for it,
Right.
other than the Brembo thing, which was ridiculous. And so I
I
started.
think Japan had them, but they weren't really importing them in the U.S.
Right,
so
they weren't bringing any of that stuff
yeah.
in. And even then, I found an EX knuckle and put that on there, and that still wasn't that good.
No.
And so I thought I need an 11-inch rotor, and so I scoured the catalogs and found this rotor that has a 4x100 pattern, and it had the right offset that allowed me to design this bracket to mount all this up. And so I've been selling this now for 25 years.
Wow. So would you say this is one of your better selling kits?
You know, it used to be. I mean, back, again, probably up until 6-7 years ago, I sold a couple hundred of them a year.
Right.
But then the EFs and the EGs, people, they kind of moved on to other stuff.
Yeah.
And so I still sell some of them, and it's kind of a little resurgence lately, last year maybe.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think these older cars are coming back.
Well, that's it too. You know, I bought
Yeah.
one 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been 3 years already. Yeah, 3 years already.
Did you do this upgrade?
And I did this up. First thing I did.
Ooh, I have the same one.
Yeah, first thing I did was
Yeah.
change the front brakes, and so
Cool.
they work really well. And even on a 92 horsepower DX,
Yeah.
it's still nice to be able to hit the brake and you know you're going to slow down.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So I raced on this originally back in '80 with my '89 Civic back in '98 or '99 or whatever.
Yeah.
I had that car.
Yeah.
And then we did go to a Wilwood caliper.
Right.
For a little while with the CRX that I had.
Right. Same rotor.
Yeah. Same rotor. And then we even did a 5-lug at the time.
Then you did
We
the
made-
5-lug,
yeah.
and I had to change. That's a different animal, so I had
Right.
to change stuff around.
Right.
But on these early cars, like even the 84s,
Mm-hmm.
84 to 91s, and 11-inch rotors, really all you need with these things.
Right.
You know, unless you're doing some serious track time on it, when you can go to a bigger rotor. This 11-inch kit, you really can't beat it.
Okay.
You know, the cost is low. Rotors are inexpensive. You know, you can get them. There's a short supply now because
Right.
of the whatever
Yeah.
COVID stuff. But
The plague.
yeah, but you can still get plain ones rather than slotted ones now. They're still easy
All
to
right.
get.
Cool.
You know, so
All right, so the only other thing we have left to do is upgrade to a steel brake line.
Right.
The reason you want to do that, by the way, is as your the steel brake lines maintain their rigidity, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
So as the brakes heat up, these things get soft.
Right.
And they can actually expand
And
and
they-
cause pedal feel
yeah,
problems.
and as they age, they get soft as well, and
Yeah.
so they will expand. Like these look like the original lines on the car.
These are the original lines
Yeah.
from the
So
car.
so from 1991, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you can just imagine how spongy they are.
Right.
You know, and so
Yeah.
you put this.
They're not meant to last forever.
No, they're not.
definitely
Actually,
don't.
it's kind of funny. Years ago, I remember reading somewhere where most manufacturers recommend you change the brake hoses every 7 years.
Oh, interesting.
You know, it's one of those things. Nobody ever does it.
Yeah.
You know, but if you change them once to a braided steel line, then you don't ever have to change them again.
Right.
You know,
All right, so let's take a look at the rear brakes.
drum brakes originally on the Backmarker.
No, I had multiple choices
Yeah.
of what to do.
Yeah.
So on, we could have done the DA rear trailing arm swap, which of course widens the stance, which I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
We could have done DC2
Right.
rear trailing arms, or Civic EX,
Yeah.
or CRX. But actually, this actually has really good bushings
Right.
in it, the trailing arm.
Yeah.
So we decided to go with,
The conversion rather than changing the whole thing.
Yeah.
On this particular kit, you don't have to change the spindle, the hub assembly, any of that stuff. You just take off the drum backing plate. There's 4 bolts that hold the drum backing plate on.
Right.
The whole drum assembly comes off. Disconnect the hard line from the soft line up here on the inside of the trailing arm, and then we have a bracket that bolts in place of uses 2 bolts that used to hold the drum backing plate on, and so it's a very simple upgrade. It uses this particular case uses a 10 1/4 inch rotor, which is the same size as an EP3, for example, with an Integra caliper, and you can see how well it fits. It's all good. It keeps the balance front to rear, so you're going from a 9.5 inch front to an 11 inch front, and you kind of want to get a little more in the back to bring that bias back to where it is, and so this will do that.
okay.
And so these work really well. Brake balance is really nice on them. Relatively simple to do, and you know, you can piece it together if you want to. You can get your own
Right.
rotors and stuff and calipers. That, you know,
I actually got these 94 Integra calipers from the salvage yard, including the brake cables. Now the brake cables are actually off a hatchback,
Right.
which are slightly shorter than the 4-door.
Right.
And they should be long enough for a this year hatchback.
yes, they will. The 4 doors are actually a little better because they're slightly longer. They're about 1.5 inches longer. So,
Yeah.
and so they work a little better, but these will still work.
Okay.
It takes a little more work to get them onto the balance bar and come down past the gas tank. You know, when they come around the gas tank here,
Right.
to get them in the proper position. But once you get all that figured out, then it goes together.
Right. Now I know that if I had a 92-5 Civic, if I had a hatchback Civic, I could use the hatchback Integra cables, but if I have a sedan or a coupe, I got to use the 4
You got to use the 4 doors,
Right.
Because again, they're a couple inches longer, and the sheath is okay, but the cable assembly itself is too short.
Got it.
So that's, you know, and you still have to adjust it underneath the console with the balance bar with that big nut that's on there.
Got it.
You have to put, you know, to take
it-
all,
take it all apart.
It's actually easier to take the whole mechanism off the floor. Take, you know, just the 2 bolts or 3 bolts that hold the parking
The
brake
brake.
lever. Take that all off. Put the cables on there, get them all set up, and then bolt that back in place.
Okay.
It's just much easier to do it that way rather than trying to stretch that cable and get it into the balance bar and all
Got
that.
it. All right.
So it's much
Cool.
easier to do it that way.
I would actually put all these together, but unfortunately, I loaned out my brake
The brake lines.
brake lines.
Yeah.
So be probably a day or so. But the other thing is, on the fit, we were able to use
The factory cables.
the factory cables.
Yeah. But here, we have not been able to figure out how to do that
Yeah.
because of the angle that's involved there, where the parking brake cable comes down the trailing arm and attaches to the
The top
to
there.
the top there where the L bracket is. It's in a different
Right.
spot, and so
Okay.
yeah, so it's in a different spot. So it's
Yeah.
it's possible to do it, but we haven't figured out how to do which length L bracket to use to make
Right.
it right. So
All right.
and I know you still need to take off your hard line from your drum.
Yeah,
That's,
okay.
That's still on there, so get rid of that.
Yeah.
Because that's where the new line's going to be coming down
Okay.
right here, and then turns the corner and goes onto the caliper right
Got
there.
it. So I'll do that.
And the one other thing I want to point out to people too is, if you can get in here, Aaron, at the caliper. Here's the part of the caliper where the line bolts to, and you can see how it's got these 2 projections. That's what holds the end of the brake line, the banjo bolt and everything else. As you can see, this one is horizontal. That indicates it's from a 94 to 01 Integra or Civic. The DA, the 90 through 93 Integra, or the CRX SI,
Uh-huh.
this particular part is vertical. And so, because the line came down the trailing arm, made a big loop down, and came back straight up. So that's how you can tell the difference between the two. And you want to you can use them, you just have to have the right brake line.
Right.
You need to make sure you have the right brake line to go with each respective caliper.
Got it.
So, other than
All
that,
right.
it's just the system's identical.
Cool. Well, that's good to know. I am going to pull that hard line and, oh yeah, there it is. Pull the hard line, pull the soft line, pull the brake cables,
Yeah.
and get all that going so we can wrap it up. All right.
Yeah, the big when I did all this on my EF a couple years ago after I got the EF, the hardest part was the cable, because you've got to get under where the gas tank is. You've got that heat shield there. And
Yeah.
You got to take the heat shield off.
The
It's
exhaust
four
off, the heat
bolts.
shield off,
Yeah,
yeah.
you don't got to take the exhaust off, just the heat shield.
Okay.
And then when you get up in there, it's really tight to where the cables bolt to the body itself.
Okay.
And so just kind of take your time. You don't get in a hurry to get it done.
All right.
If you
And this is advice if you're laying on your back in your garage.
Exactly.
Which he was.
Yeah.
Me,
Right.
I can thrash around.
Yeah.
'Cause,
But yeah, I'm under there, and it's like, okay. But yeah,
Yeah.
take the heat shield off. It makes it much easier to get to those bolts. And one of them is still going to be a pain in the butt because
Okay.
it's hidden behind the flange of the gas tank.
Got it.
So just kind of, be aware of that. If you're going to do it, just kind of take your time and
All right.
plan it all out.
All right. So we're going to wrap up the brakes here and then get back on installing our engine.
Bolt right there. That bolt right there, it's very hard to get to that thing. So that's the one you have to be, that one. And then this one, these two over here, same thing. Sometimes if you can't get the right cables, you can use the same cable from one side or the other, the same cable, but the brackets are reversed. So sometimes you have, if you go to put them back on that bolt there, it's a pain in the butt. Saves so much time.
Birthday gift.
Ratchet. The other thing too, when you're under here and you're under your car, you should be wearing safety goggles. The stuff will fall in your eyes all the time. Don't ask me how I know that either. I used to have perfect vision, exactly, till stuff got in my eyes.
How does he know these things?
Tighter something.
Oh! Probably gonna have to do something about that.
Rat's nest.
I had no idea that we had rats, but we do.
There we go. Okay. Now, see the shifter mechanism, or the quarter?
Cash money.
All right, man.
If I can find
There should be
another one, I'll buy you a soda.
Pull it through the.
right,
Then
yeah.
yeah, that whole thing will come out. Then we can kind of weasel our way out
Okay.
this way. You know, you got to feed the cable down, and
All right.
you just have to do it.
We
that
do
way.
one at a time.
Yeah, that's the easier way to do it.
I'll tell you what. I'm tempted just to cut it because we don't need it.
Oh yeah, there you go. Bolt cutters. If you don't need them, you don't need them.
Okay. Sparks near the gas tank.
Yeah, good boy.
Recipient of the screwdriver.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
This one over here needs to go into the back,
Oh, in the back corner.
near the cable. Yeah.
I think this exhaust will be too small, probably, but we'll leave it on at least temporarily. When I do the next motor, I'll put a bigger exhaust on it. But in the end, this needs about 250 horsepower. So a B17, 106 horsepower. I ain't cutting it. I'm not going to K it. I think I'm going to leave it B. But I'm leaning. I mean, obviously I got that B18C I'm working on, but I'm leaning towards. I have a stroked B16 and I have a supercharger. I'm leaning in that direction. That'd probably be good for 320. Sounds pretty good to me. Hey, thanks a lot for coming out and helping out with this.
Nope, my pleasure.
Yeah.
It's always fun to work on these things.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, we're at the home stretch now. We just have, gosh, a day's worth of work, although I'll be honest with you, it always takes longer to get the last little bit done. But here's what we have left. We've got to hook up the wiring. We have to modify our fuel line in order for it to work properly or find a proper fuel line. The heater lines, I don't have those. I need to find an intake air tube, a filter. Need to make some upper radiator mounts. I can't find this factory Honda ones. I'm not sure where I put those. Let's see. I think I might know where they are. Let's see. I'm going to change one of the bolts to a button head cap screw. Our radiator, it's much thicker than stock, and it's just interfering down there with the subframe. So we made a little cut to make it clearer, but a shorter bolt would probably help as well. So that's next. Also battery. We have one of the Hasport EF battery boxes that mounts underneath the bumper here right on the frame rail. So that means I need an Odyssey style battery for that. So I need to order the battery. Speaking of battery, I need to make battery cables. So for that, we're going to make a positive battery cable that comes up to both the starter and the fuse box. Then I need to make a ground cable as well that goes to the chassis and to the transmission. I need to repair my OBD0 adapter. Need to find the clip for the Speedo cable. We have actually the VSS from an Integra, which has bypasses for the power steering lines, which we're not using power steering. So I'm going to try and find a Civic one. I think the one that came out of the car, I gave it to somebody because that's what I do sometimes. thinking I could find another one in a salvage yard, and then I don't. Let's see. I need to wire the radiator fan, make sure it's moving the correct way. I think we have it set up on pull, so I just need to get the polarity right so it's actually drawing air through the radiator. Scott made these really nice brackets for it. We'll have to actually make a bunch of them. Vacuum lines, a few vacuum lines not connected. This is on the B17. This actually kicks up the idle when you first shut off the throttle so the car doesn't stall. That needs to be plumbed into our intake. Then this purge valve needs to be plumbed into our intake as well, so I need to find some vacuum line for that. Then I need to put the rear calipers. I got new rebuilt calipers, although I think I'm going to paint them red first just to match the front calipers. We need the rear brake lines. They should be in today or tomorrow. Moment of truth here. Car's wired up. I actually wanted buying, as you've seen, I modified the engine harness, made it OBD2 compliant, made it VTEC compliant. Then I actually put more than I needed to in it because we're running a P30 with an S300. So that means the only thing I really need is the VTEC solenoid wire. But that's in there. It's all wired up. I bought a adapter harness, OBD0 to OBD1 adapter harness from Amazon. Forget the name of the company. I'll put it in the show notes. WDNL something. Anyway, it was interesting. As I was looking through it, I noticed that for whatever reason they had the O2 sensor teed into like the map sensor wiring, which would have made it run like crap. So not sure what they're thinking, why they did something like that. But and the other thing is they have a lot of extra wires that came out of the harness that I have no idea what they're used for. I mean, basically the ones you want are NOx sensor, VTEC oil pressure, VTEC solenoid, O2 heater control, because you're doing a 4-wire O2, and then the service check signal and a ground, and that way you can get the ECU to flash codes. So, but then there's a bunch of other stuff. I have no idea why. Anyway, so it's all wired up. I used a couple C101 connectors from a K-series. I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. And basically I've got the battery wired up, and we're ready to try to fire it up. So I loaded a base program from the Honda S Manager program for the S300 for a B17 from a 92-93 GSR, so it should run. The engine hasn't run for 2 or 3 years. It sat over there in the dirt, and well, we put it all together and we'll see if it runs now. All right, let's try it out. Nothing. Not a thing. Well, the ECU turns on, cycles like it should. The what may be wrong with it, it may not have enough power. We put the battery in about 4 days ago, thinking we were going to fire it up 4 days ago, and I think somebody might have left the key on and drained the battery. So let's check that out. Take two. Nothing. Okay. Yep. Do it again. Nothing. Do it one more time. All right. Bet your money's got an alarm. Well, I don't know if you can see under here, but oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Looks like there might be an alarm in here. So tomorrow I will be laying on my back underneath the dash, unwiring and rewiring. Yeehaw. Okay, we're next day on Project Backmarker, and I made the statement I thought there was an alarm system going on there. In fact, I took a peek underneath, and it had this small ignition defeat alarm tucked up underneath there. So I chopped it out, reconnected the wires that do the starter, Gave it a quick bump just to make sure the starter was going to work, and we're ready to try start it again. So I've got Aaron back with the camera, and we are going to try to fire it up. Yeah, take 4. Here we go. I did pull the seat out when I was climbing underneath there to get the alarm. I haven't bothered putting it back in yet, but I have a milk crate, so this is not the first time I've started up an EF sitting on a milk crate.
Son of a bitch!
It wants to go. It's got old gas in it. I think it's probably about 4 years old. So let's try this one more time. Might try a little starter fluid. Not really. Should have fired. Pretty dry. That one's slightly damp. Looks fine. They all look fine. Oh, you know what? Let's check, see if we're getting spark. It's sparking. So we got spark, and I believe we have fuel. What I'm going to do now is actually make sure each of the injectors are clicking. So it is clicking. Not particularly loud, but it is clicking. That one's clicking louder. Quiet like the first one. Very silent, but it's there. It sounds actually very weak to me. I think I might just try a little bit of starter fluid and see if I can get it to catch, and then see if it runs after that. All right. Give me a squirt. Okay. All right, here we go. Give me another squirt.
Okay.
Give me another squirt. Give me another squirt. Okay, we don't have gas, so that's got to be what the problem is. When we first turn it on, we had fuel come out of the fuel pressure, come out of the fuel filter. So we know the pump's coming on. So now the question is it still coming on? So we need to check and see if the fuel pump is, we've got sufficient pressure.
How old are the injectors, or how long have they been sitting since you last ran?
They click, not particularly loud, but they click.
Should we try putting 12 volts straight to them?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the plugs were pretty dry when we pulled them out. So it leads me to believe that we're not really getting much fuel at all. All right. Yay, troubleshooting. So I would imagine it's actually the injectors are gummed up. So I think we're going to have to swap the injectors out, and then we can probably get it to fire up. So that means I need to find some injectors. Well, that one doesn't have power. Let's check the others. No 12 volts. The injectors do not have power. Injector power comes from the main relay. So I suppose we could have a problem with the main relay, but that doesn't make sense because the check engine light goes on and off. So I guess I need to go grab a manual and figure out why there's not 12 volts there. So we basically disconnected the distributor, ran it, turned it over a bunch of times, then pulled the plugs, and only cylinder 4 had had a wet plug. The other 3 were dry. So even though the injectors are clicking, they're not flowing fuel. So that's a problem, obviously. So we're going to put some different ones in and see how it works. Well, I'm going to say the fuel pump may be the problem.
What'd you say?
I'm saying the fuel pump, we can hear the fuel pump turn on, but it may just be gummed up and not working. I mean, with a lot of cranking, we got fuel pressure before, but now we have no fuel pressure.
See? How is it?
How's it doing that?
Yeah, that was pressure.
It's got pressure, but not enough for this to bypass it.
Yes.
So it may just be weak pressure. So this is the stock line, and basically the way these work with this particular fuel rail is this end of the line has a bigger hole than this side, and fuel flows around a special washer and into the fuel rail that way. We bored it out trying to make a difference, but it doesn't seem like it may not have done it. We're not getting it seems like we're not getting flow from here to the regulator. So because otherwise we should have fuel coming out of there.
Pouring out of there.
Yeah, the other option is we don't have enough fuel pressure. The fuel pump's weak and it's just not pumping enough. So we're going to try this first. All right, see if we get fuel through there now. Still nothing. There we go.
There's a little more of a drip. I moved my finger like it was going to get caught.
Well, it's making it to the amount of fuel pressure we need to leak a little through. All right, well, let's plug it all together and see if it runs.
Fuel pump sounds more alive. I could hear it from here.
Well, come on!
Can you see it coming through them? Do it again.
Oh yeah.
Huh? Oh yeah?
Oh yeah. Now it's done.
A couple more times.
Does it come
Don't
out
actually
if I
crank it,
purge
just turn it on and turn
Yeah,
it
there
off.
you go.
Because it cycles for about 3 seconds. Is it clear yet?
I can't turn the hose. Let me see.
It looks pretty clear from here, maybe. Yeah. Alright, feel it decent.
Charger, power bank, okay.
All right. I mean, send it.
You.
Okay. Do it again. All right, so I got here early this morning and started trying to troubleshoot this thing to see what the problem was. And I started off with my continuity tester to see where I had continuity, if I had continuity with the injectors back, because really we decided that it was a fuel problem. I had changed the injector wiring when I converted from multi-point fuel injection, the dual point fuel injection, to multi-point fuel injection. So as I always say, things you change are likely where the problem is, so that's where I started searching. And I found some interesting continuity where there probably shouldn't have been continuity. So that was kind of an eye-opener, so that made me dig into it a little bit further. I tested the continuity of each individual section of each wire, and I found that I lacked continuity from my injector 2 over to the driver's side plug where it should have been. Now, it turns out the error I made is the fact that I was doing wiring and I'm using 63-year-old eyes. So what happened was I took one of the red wires that has a black stripe and placed it where the solid red went, and took the solid red wire and placed it where a red wire with a black stripe went. So I wanted basically killing two injectors. I don't know, not killing injectors, but not allowing them to get continuity back, and that's where the problem is. So unfortunately, because of the way I built the harness, I'm gonna have to pull it kind of halfway out of the car, then I can repair it, we'll put it all back in, and we'll try to fire it up one more time. Anyway, it's not gonna be easy. We kind of tucked the wires out of the way, so that means I gotta remove the clutch cable in order to get the wiring out. I was actually able to kind of do that without totally removing it, but I'm at the point now where I need to pull it out from underneath the intake manifold, and hopefully I can get to everything and get it fixed. Unfortunately, I'm probably gonna have to unplug the oil sensor and the NOx sensor from underside, and anyway, it's a scene. Anyway, hopefully back in half an hour with a car that will start up. I changed the injector wires so they're correct now. I really probably should have now checked continuity to make sure everything was right back, but I'm losing patience. So I reconnected everything I disconnected, and let's see if it fires up. Well, we have a check engine light coming on and staying on. That's not good. Now hearing the fuel pump come on. All right, so got our little makeshift fuel pressure gauge in there. We'll see if it's got fuel pressure. Man. Nothing?
Zero. Oh, stop. Right there. Got a leak. Let me know when you're ready.
All right, let's see if we still got spark. So somewhere in the last day, we seem to have lost the distributor. So it's aftermarket, so these aren't known to be terribly consistent. So perhaps turning it over burnt out an igniter, or who knows. So we will change it out. There would be the problem. So we decided to do a continuity check as our last thing. We weren't having spark with our distributors, so we swapped distributors. That one didn't have spark either, so it led me to believe that the way that this particular adapter harness works is that it is set up to go color for color as opposed to position for position, or vice versa. One of the things about the OBD0 to OBD1 model change is they change the colors for the cylinder sensor and for the crank angle sensor. So at one point, one of them was orange and white, and the other one was, I think, blue, green, blue, yellow. And then for whatever reason, Honda decided to swap the colors. And then when you buy an adapter harness, sometimes they realize that and they leave the colors swapped and they do it position for position on the adapter harness. And sometimes they don't do that, they do it color for color. So what winds up happening is these things get switched. So went in, checked continuity, and sure enough, my number one cylinder sensor was feeding to the crank angle sensor and vice versa. And what winds up happening is one of them is used for firing the injectors, the other one's used for firing the, for timing, synchronizing the injector timing. And we just flat weren't getting it to work properly. So I switched the wires so that they had continuity to the proper place, and checked to make sure I had spark. I got spark, so I think we're going to start. Take two. I'm sorry, 12. Well, that's a relief. Running a little rough, but I'm going to blame that on bad fuel. Well, I'm going to take the fuel gauge off, put the other bolt back in, and I can tighten it better with that one. That one's kind of difficult to tighten. And then put a seat in it, and we'll take it for a test drive. I was this close to doing a K. It would have been more work and so much easier. Oh. Taking it for a little test drive, cracking a little VTEC. I don't recommend that without a seat back. And kind of seating's high, but you know, the evening sun, I was able to actually bury my head in the headliner and didn't even have to use my sun visor, which was kind of nice. But anyway, it feels pretty good. So I need to get it tuned, but before we do that, seat, reassemble the interior, get the outside detailed, and then we can start driving this thing around. I love it, absolutely love it. Needs a good vacuum too. Finally, it's running. Let's review. I made two big mistakes. Number one, I wired my injectors improperly, and that basically was red wire with a black or blue stripe, I forget what it is, and red wire. I swapped them, so I had one injector with 2 injector signal wires and 1 injector with 2 power wires, so it didn't work. The other problem, of course, was the adapter harness. I should have known better. I should have checked to see if the crank angle sensor and the #1 cylinder sensor were properly routed. I did not, and that caused a little bit of a problem. But other than that, that cost me a day. Well, probably more like half a day, but still, other than that, it was relatively straightforward. But we still have a lot to do with this car. We need to make a few things for it. We need to straighten up the interior a little bit, get everything arranged in there properly for me. Good seat. Had a race seat for a 6-foot-plus guy. And I did make a mistake. I think I put a stage too much clutch in this, so it's a little bit difficult to operate, particularly without a seat back. I may change that out. I may leave it in for a little while. Anyway, guys, this has been an epic episode of VTEC Academy. I hope you learned something. I learned a few things. Anyways, please think about liking and subscribing. We're going to have more episodes with this in it. Once we get it cleaned up, we'll get it to the dyno, and then we'll try to take it out to the track. Anyway, we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for clicking on us.